Good morning, everyone. My name is Brad Turner. We are happy to have you a part of our part two, a case study in products life cycle. Your hosts for today's webinar are myself, Ben Miller, our Director of Aftermarket Services, and Don Olson, Head of Circular Supply Chain at Nokia. Before we begin, something that we like to do here at Matrix Group and many other organizations follow suit as well, starting with safety tips. Obviously, we have the three here, but where we are, we do have a little bit of inclement weather happening. So just give yourself a little extra time for travel and understand it's better to be safe than to rush something and cause injury to yourself, others, or family. With that being said, I'm going to introduce Don Olson. He is the Senior Director at Nokia and is responsible for the corporate portfolio of circular products. Nokia is a world leader in remanufacturing with an active portfolio of over 100 product families, accounting for thousands of orderable items sold worldwide. Prior to working for Nokia, Don's background consisted of business and operations management experience in the industries of X-ray security and biometric products. He holds a BS degree in industrial engineering from the University of Massachusetts and a dual MS degrees in business management and telecommunications from Boston.
Okay, hi everybody. Sorry about that. Thanks for the introduction, Ben. So I'm Don Olson, and let me show my screen here. And this should do it. Hide this. Okay, so again, I'm Don Olson, and I manage or direct Nokia's circular supply chain, which is a supply chain organization like any other supply chain, but our products are remanufactured using a supply of used product, and as opposed to manufactured using new components. So we're starting with an existing product, and we remanufacture it and supply it and deliver it and sell it to customers just like new, basically, is what it comes down to. Get to the next slide. So this is a view of Nokia's circular products and practices. It's part of our marketing literature at the corporate level. And what you see here is the customer networks. Everything we, our entire supply comes out of the, is displaced from our customers as they modernize their network. Our customers are like AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Deutsche Telekom, all these telecommunication service providers that use our equipment to build out their network to offer, wireless and internet type services. So all that equipment obviously gets upgraded over time and modernized, and it comes out of service, and we take it back in my group and we handle all the reverse logistics and bring it back. So that's the collection piece. And then, you're going to disposition what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. So what we don't keep goes to into a recycling program to be responsibly recycled, and what we do keep, supports demand for repair. It gets refurbished or remanufactured, and then we reuse it, which means we sell it or put it back into the network of other customers, maybe even the same customer sometimes. And we offer these types of consultation services to our customers to help them make good decisions with these assets that they have. So this is just a good view of the circular practice that we have with our products in our portfolio. When we do look at our products, you have to make a decision as to what you're going to get involved in from a remanufacturing perspective. Not everything makes sense to remanufacture economically, but other times you need to know when to cut in or when to stop manufacturing new. So what you have here is a product life cycle curve. You have two products, product 1, product 2, and you could see your typical life cycle curve of a new product as it gets introduced into the market, and then builds up into high volume production, and then over a period of time that production declines, And then along at some point in that product one life cycle, a new product will be invented, and it will begin to um, interfere, I guess, for lack of a better word, with the existing product one. And so you really have a crossover point where you're starting to manufacture and sell more of product number two than you are product number one. So at some point, you need to say, well, we should stop manufacturing this first product and let's just remanufacture it instead. So in this green curve under here is the area where, or the time span where you would enter into a remanufacturing model as part of the supply chain. You would start to, what I like to call, phase in remanufacturing and phase out new manufacturing. Now, this green curve could be a year, it could be 2 years in some products, not so much anymore today, but it could be 10 or 15 years of existing life of remanufacturing. Depends on the industry and the technology. In telecom, though, this little area here under the curve is really shortening up to, I would say, on average, maybe 18 months, depending on the product. So, you really want to introduce a circular supply chain in this spot when you're looking at products as they move through their life cycle and new products are invented. And that's how we look at it in Nokia. So gives you a little perspective there. There's so many products and you only have so much time and people and energy and money. So you want to make the right decision as to which products you want to remanufacture, because you want to make sure that you get a return on your investment. So, we look at these categories from a business perspective, from an embedded base perspective, from a life cycle perspective of where the product is in its life, like I showed you on the last slide, and then how stable the product is. Is there a lot of changes still happening to this product, and that you're going to have to incur a lot of cost to remanufacture it? When you remanufacture something, you want the design to be very robust and stable. So, these criteria, I won't go through every one of them, but if you're looking at a business, from a business perspective, you want to immediately figure out if your costs are increasing to build a new one, and maybe it's a good cost advantage to remanufacture one. If it's active and being resold on the secondary market, if your customers are displacing it, selling to other companies that are then remanufacturing it and sell it in competition with you, you might want to enter this business and be a competitor. And these types of things, how uncertain the demand might be, or predictable the demand might be, what the size of the embedded base is. If it's a large embedded base that's being displaced, you have a good volume of supply and a good volume of demand that could happen. So you want to think about the embedded base and whether it's local or global, or where the product is, how hard it would be to get your hands on it, how much cost to deal with the reverse logistics to get it back to a warehouse and then to a factory to manufacture. How on the life cycle perspective, can you get components to repair it, or is the price so cheap now that it doesn't even make sense to stay in this business anymore because you can't make money at it? And then stability of the product, are there no more engineering resources in the company that can tell you how to re-engineer the product or fix it or remanufacture it? So these are the types of things that you think about as a team, not just one person, but a cross-organizational team gets together and kicks around all these things, and you come up with, basically a business case that says, let's move forward. When you start to decide to move forward, we look at it like we create a scoring model. These are not product part numbers. I just created these just to make sure that I don't share too much information outside the company. So these are just particular, these would normally be products. So just take product AAA. You look at, whether you have a lot of supply in the used market, whether it's coming out of your customer networks from swap outs. Maybe we're being displaced by competitors. Maybe we're offering the customer incentive to buy our new products and we'll buy back our old products. Perhaps there's lots of excess and obsolete in the company. So in here, we rate these as a group and, comes up to a 9. So this is a good product with lots of supply. And then you look at the demand. So are customers still buying it? The customers need support because they want to keep it in their network, and it's an old legacy product, but they don't want to displace it yet, so they still need it. And is there some internal demand? So in this case, Now, there's not a lot of legacy support in this product because it's actually still a pretty current product. We're still manufacturing this new, so there is still a lot of demand. That's why that's a 7. So lots of supply, lots of demand, 9 and 9, and we just go ahead and do the same thing with all these products, and then we just throw it onto a graph so we can easily see it. And here's your typical chart. So if anything falls up in this upper right quadrant, like this AAA one does, where you have almost a 10 in availability and almost a 10 in demand, well, and the business case makes sense, you go ahead and you roll up your sleeves and you commercialize this product, and you create the ability to take it back, disposition it, put it into inventory, create part numbers, run it through a factory to be remanufactured and things like that. And then you add it to your portfolio and you begin to sell it and track the cost and business aspects of the product, just like a new product. So, from a decision process, it's nothing, it's not rocket science. It's more based on experience and a collective group of experts deciding to move forward across a pretty broad portfolio of products. And then you move forward and you basically add it to your portfolio of remanufactured products, and you offer it for, like I said, perhaps about 18 months would be about your typical life cycle. Let me see if I can get this to switch slides. For some reason it won't work. Okay. So the product that I was talking about is really just an enclosure here with circuit packs and fan units and things like that. So what we end up doing in a remanufacturing perspective is we take back the product from the field and we'll remove everything here in pink because it's just hardware and it's not a lot of cost associated with it. And we really keep the 2 items that are the most value. 90% of the cost of this product is in these circuit boards, which are about the size of a pizza box. So very expensive. We keep these, we'll upgrade them, we'll bring them up to the latest shippable version, we'll functionally test them, and then we'll put them into brand new enclosures that we buy from suppliers with a new fan unit and new cabling. So, in the world of remanufacturing, we like to say the products are being brought back to like new condition, and they'll have the same form, fit, and functionality as a new product, and this product certainly does. So we end up basically with a product that looks exactly like new. So if you bear with me a minute, I'm going to do my best to see if I can play a video of what that looks like. Probably won't be able to do it. Oh man. Yeah. Typically there would be music with this, but I can't seem to get it to play. But I can narrate. And hopefully this is working out okay. So this is the product that I'm talking about. It's shipped to our factory in the Ukraine, and you can see we're disassembling it. And there's a little bit of cleaning work to get some of the items off the components. Then we're running the circuit boards, like I mentioned. Maybe they're not the size of a pizza box after all. They're a little smaller, but we're running them through the same circuit board testing as the new is. And we're applying all the same processes that you would with a new production. And now installing it into, the new enclosure. This product is a base transceiver station you'd see on the top of an antenna for a cell tower, and it receives and transmits your mobile device signal. And there's about 1 million plus out there in the embedded base, so huge volumes handling all the cellular traffic. That if you happen to be on the network of a customer that has Nokia products, if your signals, your voice and your data and your video streaming is running right through a product like this one. Okay, I think I was here. Hopefully that worked out okay. It's hard to say. Not getting any feedback, but I think it might have. Anyway, so I just, what you saw is this graphic being done in real time in a factory in Ukraine. That factory makes all the new products as well. It's one of the factories we manufacture that product new. So in remanufacturing, we try to piggyback off the infrastructure that exists with new. We're a Nokia, we're an OEM, so we have that capability, and it's a good advantage for us. So we can use the same experienced technicians and test sets and processes and software, and so it makes it kind of nice. So it truly is just like new, the product that goes to the customers. They can't even tell the difference. So this was a product that we decided to get involved in 2019, and we've been remanufacturing and selling thousands and thousands and thousands of these. So it's worked out pretty well. One of the ways it works out, and one of the ways we measure it, is this is my last slide, and just a little bit of data. This is the environmental benefit. We know that this product, when it's manufactured new, puts out about 1,200 kilograms of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. When we remanufacture the product, you could see we're saving 84% of that. So the environmental benefit is 969 kilograms of CO2 emissions avoidance. Customers care about this, and when you start to multiply that times thousands of products, we're talking metric tons of carbon no longer being pumped into the atmosphere. So there is a big environmental benefit with remanufacturing, and particularly this product in particular. And we track that with all our products, and we provide our customers this information, and they really like it. So that's good. And then on the other hand, from a business perspective, you could see the cost to make a new one. Most of the cost is in the bill of materials associated with all the new supply. But when you look at the used solution, a remanufactured one, it's 68% less expensive for Nokia to support and manufacture, because you're starting with a used core. You still have a little bit of a new bill of materials. That's the enclosures we have to buy. And you can see it's the circuit cards that I mentioned that are driving most of this new BOM. We have more freight costs though, because we have to take it out of the network and bring it back into a warehouse and then ship it again to a factory and then ship it to a customer. So it's a little more expensive to handle logistically, far less expensive to manufacture, and certainly the supply is way down. So from a company perspective, very profitable, especially for a product that's moving toward its end of life, and the price maybe not as high as it used to be when it was originally introduced into the market. So you have a declining price, you want your cost to decline. This is a good way to preserve your margins on older products, and it's a good way to help the environment. So that's kind of the case of a sort of a life cycle view of a typical product in Nokia as we move it from new manufacturing to remanufacturing. And I think this is my last slide actually. And if that's the case, I could address some questions. I'm not sure how questions would come in, but I do have a few questions that I can share that typically the audience would ask me, like, for instance, how do customers respond to the strategy of phasing out new production and phasing in remanufacturing? I mean, are they okay with that? Are they willing to buy the remanufactured product instead of new? And my answer is yes. Typically, they are looking for a price discount, but they also are happy that Nokia is not just discontinuing the new product, that they have time to evolve to new technologies, yet still support their legacy network. And they're also very excited about the environmental benefits from a sustainability perspective. So we're seeing that type of feedback grow more and more, the environmental aspect. But certainly a lower price product that's just as good as new production is pretty welcoming to a customer. So that's going well. Another question is, how do we guarantee supply availability? And really that just comes down to the analysis I showed you earlier with the size of the embedded base and whether we're selling new technology and displacing the old technology and making sure that old technology comes back. And eventually we build up quite a large acquisition funnel, which then we reconcile against the demand funnel. And we just make sure we don't buy too much or acquire too much just by looking at those two data points. So it works out pretty good that way. And that's pretty much it. Those would be two questions I can share that I typically get that you guys might be thinking but not able to ask. And with that said, I can pass this back to Matrix. I think Ben can take over for me now. And hopefully you guys found this interesting. Thanks.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I want to.
While we're switching gears, I just want to thank Dawn for your time coming in and presenting today. That was a wealth of information. I'm Andrea, the marketing specialist here at Matrix Group. I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for tuning in. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brad Turner, and then he's going to pass it on to Ben. Enjoy the rest of the seminar.
Thank you, Andrea. As we continue to the next part of part two here, Ben Miller is going to walk you through a little bit more about Matrix and some of the techniques that we're using for remanufacture and, as Don put it, from Nokia's perspective, the circular products. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ben.
All right, I'm trying to switch slides here. Okay, as you can see, hi, I'm Ben Miller, by the way. I've been with Matrix for almost 3 years now in the Aftermarket Services department. So welcome this morning. I appreciate everybody being online. The markets that we serve here at Matrix from an OEM and aftermarket standpoint are, as you can see, aerospace, energy, heavy industrial, medical, and transportation, to name a few. Andrea, I'm not being able to switch slides on this. Okay. So here at Matrix in our Aftermarket Services remanufacturing department, we do a lot of servicing, and we provide services for products that are manufactured here at Matrix, since we're an electronic contract manufacturer, our OEM products. Also, We service products for components and electronics manufactured elsewhere. So you can see from the first one, the capabilities that we offer. We clean, inspect, and test. So when a unit comes in, we typically inspect it from a physical appearance standpoint first. Before we clean it, we want to make sure that everything's intact, and we want to make sure we jot down anything that we see from a physical appearance. And then we go ahead and we clean every product that comes in before we move any further. Then we inspect it again to make sure that during the cleaning process, nothing was damaged or anything like that. And then we go ahead and we start our testing process. So once we're done with the testing, then we start learning the product and going through the troubleshoot and repair process. So we do component level troubleshooting. We have a lot of skilled technicians that are able to service the electronic products down to the component level, whether it's a through-hole component or SMT component. We routinely service the analog and the digital products. So for an example, RF, we have an extensive experience servicing transmitters, ruggedized transmitters and receivers, along with multiple channels, low power and highly sensitive units. All the aspects of the operator stations can be addressed, including displays, membrane, mechanical switches, programming, battery issues, and enclosures. In the aftermarket services department, we deal a lot with high voltage, and we are equipped to handle the high voltage in a safe manner from inputs up to 1,000 volts AC, 3-phase, and up to 150 amps. Variable frequencies, AC and SCR based on DC motor controls, also servo amps and switching controls. We also service and rebuild, modify, and convert switch boxes, junction boxes, and antenna assemblies. We do a lot of cable work, ruggedized cable, multi-wire cable, heavy-duty cable. We can handle cables anywhere from inches, millimeters, up to 150 foot long. We can repair and replace any of the parts or the components for those cables. We also do system rebuilds, and we coordinate returns of partial or entire systems scheduled to fit the customer needs, and we can return products to the customer in lots or bring together several rebuild centers to return all at once. We also do recalibration, reconditioning, and repair and refurbishment on all the products. And we also offer field service, which is some of the stuff you'll, if you missed the first webinar, some of the stuff I go in a little bit more detail about. So I would recommend definitely going back to the first webinar and reviewing the whole process and the whole webinar. It was very informative. So one of the things you'll see in this webinar is that I'm going to go through are the failure analysis reports. That's pretty important, along with the product lifecycle management opportunities. Those are pretty important with the webinar that we're doing today for the life cycle. Can you please switch slides? So here's a couple questions, statements. Did you know that consolidating services is a great way to reduce costs, lead times, and confusion? Something Don kind of pointed out a little bit as well. The experience and expertise in technology are the top 3 qualities to look for in any aftermarket services provider. And you can offload your inventory management to an aftermarket services provider. It's just a little did you know. So this is the product life cycle stages. Don did kind of go over his life cycle curve, which is fairly similar to this, just designed a little bit differently. So I'm going to go through each phase in a little bit more detail, just to get an idea, to give you an idea of which each phase means. So you can see the product life cycle stages, which include introduction, growth, maturity, decline, and the aftermarket phase, and then also the recycling phase. So the first one is the introduction phase, the stage. This is the stage in which the product is initially promoted, right? Public awareness is very important to the success of a product. If people don't know about the product, they won't go out and buy it. So that's the introduction to a product. The growth stage, this is where the market share of a product starts to grow. Often at this stage, a large amount of money is spent on advertising to get the product out there, to get people aware of what the product is and what it's used for. You want to focus your advertising campaigns at a target audience and in existing customers and sell those benefits of your products to them. And there are several channels to advertise your product. The advertising channels you choose to take will depend on your product, the industry, and the advertising budget you have. If you have any questions in regards to advertising and marketing, Andrea is a very good resource to discuss this with. The maturity stage, this is the third stage of the product life cycle. If the product completes the introduction and the growth stages, then it is likely to spend a very, very great deal of time in the maturity stage. This is the stage where sales grow at a very fast rate. Then gradually your market share will begin to stabilize. The key to surviving this stage is differentiating your product from the similar products offered by your competitors. When sales start to stabilize, you will need to go back to the development stage. Analyze your product and sales performance to be able to innovate new features and services to help your company stay competitive in the market. If you do not restart the product lifecycle here, you are more likely to reach the decline stage, which is where we're going to next. This is the stage in which sales of your product begin to fall, where technology advances. Either everyone that wants to has bought your product, or new, more innovative products have been created to replace the current product. To stay competitive here and keep your market share, that's when you have to reassess your existing product and iterate on its features. Ideally, between the maturity and decline stage, you'll need to restart the product development cycle to continue the success of your business. Some companies decide to withdraw their product completely from the market due to downturn. Well, here at Matrix, we add the aftermarket services phase. This is where we extend the product life cycle for a very extensive period of time. And I had a question come up to me not too long ago. What is the longest that Matrix has extended the life cycle of a product? Well, from my research and what I've been, since I've been here, we've had products extended for more than 20 years on certain products. My department takes a lot of pride in this phase, in this stage of the product life cycle, because what we do is we try to extend those products as long as possible for the customer before we enter the recycling phase. Recycling phase, you can see where it's red and it drops off. That's when we know for sure that the aftermarket services phase can no longer exist, and the product itself becomes basically obsolete and no longer required in the market. Next slide, please. The benefits of our aftermarket services, as you can see, the middle market companies often can't afford to invest in new products, and that happens quite a bit. If that sounds like your OEM, remember, try to remind yourself that Matrix here, we can extend the product for as long as we possibly can, as long as the components and the technology still allows us to do so. Products with a few electronic components to them probably aren't worth scrapping altogether when a few simple fixes will suffice. So you'll see that a lot where somebody will throw a product away when it could basically just be a very simple fix, and then we can extend that product. You often get remanufacturing services from a contractor, even if you didn't purchase the original product. Basically what I stated earlier, we do offer our services for products that are manufactured elsewhere. You can prolong the life cycle of the equipment in the field. Aftermarket services can minimize downtime and keep the revenue flowing. We did some stuff for public transportation, and we still do. As an example, it can take decades to have enough funding to replace aging infrastructure, not to mention the time and inconvenience. Wouldn't it make more sense to add 10 years to the current system with some upgrades or some revisions? Next slide, please. some more benefits is you can lower your warranty expenses by making repairs instead of having to use a new product or scrapping the old stuff. Now, the great thing about Matrix Aftermarket Services Department, we do offer warranties from a repair side, also obviously from a contract side, OEM side, but we do offer warranties on our aftermarket services repairs, which is something we would rather do than have to tell our customer that we need to scrap their unit. We would rather make sure that we can put it back in the field and keep the customer up and running. So you'll see the number 4 has the 2 asterisks, which is something that I've brought up in the previous webinar, but you'll see them in a couple slides down. So remember those 2 asterisks. It's what we do is we log every repair, no matter what it is, and we keep those repairs for no less than 10 years to make sure that we have a repeating history of each product that comes in based off of the serial number, the product type, the part number. We can go back in our history books and see how many times this product came in for servicing, which is what we do with failure analysis reports. This helps customers, along with ourselves, determine whether it's time to start re-engineering for a next generation or a revision of those units that have been coming back for a history of repairs. And as Don mentioned before, which is extremely important, you can reduce the environmental impact of your operation by limiting your e-waste. I won't go over this extensively. Like I said, you can go back to the first webinar and get a little bit more detail, but this is an example of a failure analysis report we do. This is basically for 2 products here for 1 customer. You can see that we put the part number down, and we have a matrix part number along with all the titles up above, which basically shows the defects or failures, or if there was no failure, maybe it just came in for a cleaning test to get out back in the field. You can see we mark down physical damage, operator damage, preventative maintenance. Maybe there was no fault found, cleaning test. Maybe it was just a conversion or an upgrade, as you can see. So we do keep track of every unit that comes in here, and we can determine based off the history how many times that unit's been here and what those units have been here for. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see kind of one slide which just shows that RCVR stands for receiver, and we're discussing, if you can go back to the other slide, please. This one, we're just dealing with corrosion. So some products, if it's in the industrial market, we might see corrosion based off of the environment. So this one, you can see that the connector pins on this certain product, depending on where it was at, most of the time that it came back for corrosion was because of the connector pins. Next slide, please. Now we keep another one for physical damage on these receivers. So you can see that the connector locking tabs are more significant than the rest of the components coming in for physical damage. So that gives the customer sales team, engineering team, an idea of the different components and the quantity of those components coming back for certain things. So maybe they can re-engineering those locking tabs to make them more sturdy or more stable in the environment that they're at. Next slide, please. Same thing here. These are more going down to the component level on these, where you can see we have the capacitors, the tram switches, the integrated circuits, the switch packs, potentiometers, and resistors. It's kind of same thing as before, but this time we're going back down to the component level. Also a corrosion. You can see on this one with the transmitters, it's the same thing as connector pins. So this would be a good example of going back and reevaluating those connector pins. Maybe seeing if you can find something that's less corrosive. Also with the transmitters, same thing, physical damage. So basically what we're going through here is just to give you an idea of what we see the most of and what they're coming back for. So even more benefits coming out of aftermarket services is, as you can see, the conservation of materials. Raw materials become scarcer and scarcer and more expensive as the days go on. Technology moves so fast that what we try to do is we try to conserve those materials and utilize them to extend the product as long as possible. Also, we reduce the energy consumption during manufacturing. It doesn't take nearly as much energy from an aftermarket standpoint to bring this product or these products back to OEM standard and give them back to the customer. And as Don mentioned earlier, reduced waste, which is disposal cost, and it's a lower price for comparable quality. What Matrix Aftermarket Services does is we maintain our products to go back on the field to an OEM standard, but typically it's at a lower price. So this is just some of the products that we offer here at Matrix Aftermarket Services. We do industrial cabling, which I mentioned earlier, industrial electronics, medical, aerospace, RF handhelds and base stations, single board computers, distributed control systems, displays, and HDMI devices. Basically anything that deals with electronics, our technicians are able to handle anything that comes through the store. So I had a question, another question that got brought up to me this morning. How long has Matrix been involved with aftermarket services and remanufacturing? Well, Brad kind of gave you a brief overview of the history of Matrix. And to be honest with you, Matrix has been involved with the aftermarket services throughout the history of the company. We started with industrial and we continue with industrial, but we've brought in other facets of other industries and other economies and things in that nature. So we've been involved for well over 30 some years in the aftermarket services department. That's the end of my presentation. I just want to again thank everybody for attending this, and I would hope that you get an opportunity to go back to the first webinar and review that as well. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have my emails and my phones on me 24/7, so I'll be able to respond within a couple minutes or seconds, depending on when I receive that. But I will definitely get back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate your time. And again, I want to thank Don for his time today. It was extremely valuable. A couple of reminders for the attendees. We will send you the webinar materials for today. Just with one caveat, the video might not be able to send, but we will be sending the presentation materials. And also, if you could please complete exit survey. Those are really valuable to us. The more information and feedback that we can get from you, the better we can service you, our customers. We're here to support you, and the better we can do that, the better for everyone. Once again, thank you to Don and Ben for presenting today. And just a quick reminder, part 3, the final part for our aftermarket series is on Tuesday, February 16th at 11 a.m. And just a reminder, Paul Adamson, and he is excited to talk about how to implement the aftermarket services process. Thank you all for joining us today. If you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Andrea. We're always available and always willing to help you. Thank you again.